to start a new series called as CCSP exam bytes. So in this series, I'm going to come up with some questions and I'm going to discuss the answers for the questions, why it is correct, why other answers are wrong, everything we're gonna discuss. So I'm planning to upload every week some 5 to 10 videos related to CCSP and CSSP in YouTube. That might be helpful for the participants who is preparing for this exam. Before starting the session, a small introduction about myself. My name is Melvin Sandron. I have totally got 21 plus years of experience in information technology. That too as a corporate consultant as well as a corporate trainer. And I'm one of the official ISSCOR instructor for India. Right. Apart from this, for more information about me, you can just check my LinkedIn profile to get some more information about me. You can join my community as well. So, first question. I'm going to read that question and I'm going to give you the idea why I have selected this option or that option and why we have avoided other options as well. Right. So, first one, just a second. Yeah. Raj, a cloud security consultant, needs to examine various security issues without depending on the virtual machine's operating system, as it could be compromised by sophisticated malware. He also wants to carry out a forensics investigation on the system. Which technique should he use to achieve this? My suggestion would be, whoever is going to take the CCSP exam, just read the question twice. Understand the key important points. In this question, you can see Raj is a cloud security consultant. He needs to examine various security issues without depending on the virtual machine operating system. For example, this is a hypervisor, might be ESXi, right? It's a type 1 hypervisor. So on top of that, multiple VMs is running like this. And inside each VM, there is an operating system has been installed. So this is called as what? Guest OS. And this is called as host operating system. Now the question is talking about, I just wanted to examine and monitor the security issues on this particular guest VMs without depending on the virtual machine operating system. So I am not going to log into each of the VMs to monitor and analyze like what process is running, like what issues happen, nothing like that. I just wanted to do it outside of the VMs. That's what this particular statement is saying. He also wants to carry out a forensics investigation on that system. Which technique he should use to achieve this? There are 4 options they have given. Let's start from D. You will have a doubt, Melvin, why are you starting from D? Because it's a small psychological factor. Sometimes if you start from A, right, if you find this one is the right answer, then you'll not check these other 2 options. Alright, it's a kind of a psychological thing. But if you start from D, I'm sure most of us would go and check up to the A. It's a small psychological trick. Okay? So D option saying conduct vulnerability assessment. But even when I want to conduct a vulnerability assessment, I have to connect to the VM and I have to install the agent, or agentless, I have to connect to the VM and I have to perform the scan. So this is not the right option. Because question is talking about externally. Hardening the system. Hardening the system means it's a kind of a proactive measure which we do to secure the system, to make it more robust to the attack. But question is talking about how to monitor the VMs externally without connecting to the VM's operating system. This is wrong. Log analysis we can do, right? Log analysis. By collecting the logs, we can analyze the logs. That's kind of a good option. But we also have to check the A option as well. VMI, virtual machine introspection. If you take this log analysis, even for collecting the logs, we have to connect to that particular VM, the guest OS configure things. But you can see the option A, which is called as VMI, virtual machine introspection. What is it? Nowadays, in most of the hypervisors, they have a feature called as introspection. That means from here itself, using this feature of the hypervisor, you can able to monitor and see what is the process running, network related information, everything you can monitor without connecting to the VM's operating system directly. This feature of the hypervisor is called as introspection. This is also called as virtual machine introspection. Among the four choices, as per the question, the most best choice would be option A, which is VMI. By using the feature VMI, we have the ability to monitor the guest OS, networks, other related information from externally without logging into the VM's OS. That's why the answer is VMI. Also, there is a document from NIST. Let me show the document to you. Right, just give me a moment. Yeah. There is a document from NIST called as Guide to Security for Full Virtualization Technologies. If I just scroll up, you can see this is the publication number 800-125. These NIST documents are free documents, right? We don't have to pay anything to access these documents. Just go to Google and search for SP 800-125. You can able to see this document. It's not mandatory to read this document for CCSP exam. No, it's not needed. But I just wanted to show you one point here, right? Just give me a minute. Let me scroll down. Yeah. If you see this particular 3.2 guest OS monitoring, which I will highlight right now. Okay. If you see here, I just highlight this particular part so that you can able to see this. Let me highlight this. If you see this particular part which I have highlighted, I'll read this. Okay. The hypervisor may have the ability to monitor each guest OS as it is running, which is known as introspection. Introspection can provide full auditing capabilities that may otherwise be unavailable. So, what kind of monitoring it is providing in the form of features? Through include network traffic, memory analysis, processes we can get the visibility, and other elements of guest OS. That is why in that question, for this, we went with this answer VMI, virtual machine introspection. Is this mandatory document to read, Melvin, for the exam? As I told you, no, but it's a reference document. If you want, you can read it, right? Always extra knowledge is always good, right? Next question. Bob, okay, a security consultant plans to migrate a large portion of data and application to the cloud. So there is a security consultant called as Bob. He is having a plan to migrate a large portion of data and application to the cloud. While aiming to leverage cloud benefits like elasticity and cost efficiency, because many organizations migrate adapt to the cloud. The main reason is cost, converting the capex to opex. Also, many benefits are the elasticity by which we can able to achieve the scalability in the cloud, and cost efficiency, as I told you, through metered service. Yes, in the cloud everything is measured, metered, and charged back. He must carefully balance security risk with disadvantages. Cloud does not only brings lot of advantages and benefits, it also brings lot of risk to the customers as well. Additionally, he wants to ensure that the cloud process data remains accessible only to authorized applications, preventing access by other tenants or even cloud administrators. Which technology should be implemented to maintain both security and functionality in this scenario? See, when you read this question, the question is all talking about Bob wants to move the application and data to the cloud because of lot of benefits in the cloud, but cloud also adds lot of risk. So now what they're telling in the question is, what they're coming up in the question is, when I move this data and application in the cloud, or specifically the data in the cloud, as cloud is a multi-tenant environment, there is a huge risk is there. But they have to use some technology to make sure even if this data is processed in the public cloud in a multi-tenant environment, this data should be accessed only by the authorized applications. Other tenants should not have access to the data. Even the cloud admin should not have access to the data. Which technology we can implement to achieve this? Actually, this is a question taken from domain 1 topic, which is impact of related technologies. From that particular topic, they have framed this question. Here we have four options. We have four options. We first clear the screen. Option D, private computing. Yeah, I can go for private cloud or private computing. But question is talking about they want to make use of elasticity, cost efficiency, metered service, and also this D option is saying private computing. So I'll remove this option. Hybrid, in the question there is nobody is talking about in the question about two forms of the cloud or anything like that. So this is wrong. Yes, absolutely. The answer is public cloud. I can go for public cloud, but the question they're talking about technology. We know public cloud, but in the public cloud there are a lot of risks. Is that? But question is talking about what technology. So this is wrong. So you'll be thinking only option left, Melvin, is confidential company. Yes, the answer is confidential company. But what is it? See, for example, in the cloud, in the cloud, it's a multi-tenant environment. Multi-tenant environment. What is multi-tenant? Multi-tenant or multi-tenancy means the cloud service provider is serving multiple tenants by sharing the underlying resources. Only logical isolation between the tenants will be there. That is multi-tenancy. Suppose, for example, VMs are running like this. These are all VMs. App 1, App 2, App 3, App 4. This is a memory. Okay. For example, I'm saying this is a ESXi stack. This is a memory. This application is storing the data here. This application is storing the data here like this. As it is a multi-tenant environment, how about if this particular application 2 access this data? How about this application 3 access this data, this data? What about the cloud admins accessing this data in the memory? What about the attacker compromise this hypervisor stack able to access the underlying memory, dump all the content of the memory? These things can happen. That too in a multi-tenant environment. That is why nowadays most of the CSPs has introduced a technology called as confidential compute. Many providers have already implemented it. Azure, AWS, these GCP, they have all introduced this confidential computing. For example, if you go to Google and search for Azure confidential computing, you can be able to get a good idea about it, right? But as CCSP is vendor neutral, we are not going to discuss that. But what is confidential computing? I don't know. Actually, when we talk about confidential computing, they actually formed a consortium called as Confidential Computing Consortium. There are a group of companies who are members of this consortium. So what they did, whenever this Intel, AMD, when these manufacturers manufacture the processors, AMD SCV processors, Intel SGX processor, many types of that, they all support this security from the hardware. So in the processor itself, there will be a secure portion called as secure enclave. Secure enclave. Now, in the processor itself, they'll be also storing the encryption keys. So, for example, this is a memory. This is a memory. So, there is a data which is stored in the hard disk. So, the application, right, fetches the data and stores the data in the memory for processing. But in the confidential computing, this data which is stored in the memory will not be in clear text. By using this keys which is stored within the CPU, they'll encrypt and only store the encrypted data in the memory. Even the data which is stored in the memory will be in encrypted form. If they want to process this encrypted data, this application, which is called as an attested application, will take that encrypted data and use the secure enclave inside the CPU to process it. It's a very secure area. So the security starts from the hardware itself, processor level itself. This overall environment is called as TEE, Trusted Execution Environment. Trusted Execution Environment. Even any other applications or the cloud admins or any other tenants might not be able to access the data, because even in the memory it is in encrypted form, it is processed in a secure enclave inside the processor. So that is why it is very secure, that too in the public cloud where we have multi-tenancy. And now many CSPs providing this feature using the technology called as confidential computing. That is why the answer here is A for alpha. Third one, Bob works as a cloud security consultant for an organization planning to shift its on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. We'll mark it, okay? Important point. They want to migrate their on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. However, they want to retain strong control over data governance and maintain clear visibility into risk management. Which cloud service model would best suit their needs? Whenever we talk about service model, we have three service model basically. One is called as infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Based on the service model, the demarcation point for who is responsible for what will vary. Always remember this, cloud is a shared responsibility model. In this question, they're talking about they want to migrate its on-prem infra to the cloud, that's good. But they want to retain the strong control over the data governance. Data governance is what? Data access policies, what kind of encryption to protect the data, access control policies, right? Implementing the access control for accessing the data, following a proper data life cycle, everything, right? And they want to maintain a clear visibility to risk management as well. So based on these two keywords, I can understand they want more control, right? They want as much as control possible on the cloud. When you go for software as a service as a customer, we have very less control. When you go for platform as a service, we have less control. But when I go for infrastructure as a service, I have the most control. Because An infrastructure as a service. As a customer, I'm going to rent the virtual infrastructure itself as a service. So I can create my own VPC, virtual private cloud. I can create my own VMs. I can configure my own network security groups, network access control list. I can set up my own database applications. Whatever I want, I can do using the virtual infra. That's why in infrastructure as a service, we will be having the most control. Most control. We will start from the, it's saying IDAS, which stands for Identity as a Service. Question is talking about on-prem infra to the cloud. They're talking about data governance, risk management. So this is wrong. In SaaS, we don't have that much control. In PaaS, we don't have that much control. The right answer is A for alpha, which is infrastructure as a service. Next one, fourth question. Which characteristics of cloud service offer the set of monitoring, preventive, responsive processes that enable a cloud service to provide continuous operations or predictable and verifiable outages through failure and recovery actions? Overall, when I read this question, when they're talking about which characteristics from the below four choices provides monitoring, preventive, responsive processes so that I can continue the operations during the time of failure, during the time of disaster, and come up with the recovery actions? What is it? It's not availability. Availability is all about whenever the services or data is requested by the customers or accessed by the customer, it should be accessible by them. But to provide that right level of availability, we have a lot of things on the back end. To provide that high level availability, like redundant architecture, redundant components, right, redundant process, right, all these things. So availability is not the right answer. Question is not talking about anything related to security. It's not reversibility. Reversibility means I'm just putting my data in the cloud or using the services of the cloud provider. Once I'm done with the product, I'm going to bring back all the data, all the applications back to my on-prem. And how about the data, the logs and everything which is collected on behalf of my tenant account and everything, when they will delete it, how they will delete it? That is actually reversibility. But option A is resiliency. What is resiliency? Resiliency is all about having a redundant architecture, right? When I say architecture, it's a combination of process, everything. By that, I have the preventive and responsive process, proper monitoring, so that during the time of disaster as well, I can able to recover, I can able to continue the service. That's what we call it as a resiliency. Right? We used to ask now how resilient you are, how resilient this data center is. That's what the answer is here, resiliency. Next question, fifth one. In all cloud models, the dash will retain ultimate liability and responsibility for any data loss or disclosure. Question is talking about in all cloud models, the dash will retain ultimate liability and responsibility for any data loss or disclosure. For example, there is a company called the CyberKey. The CyberKey people decided to migrate to the cloud. Okay, migrate to the cloud. Who will take up the decision for migrating and adapting to the cloud? Always the management or the board. Because migrating or adapting to the cloud is not a technical decision, it is a pure business decision. So the CyberKey management and the board has decided we will migrate to the cloud. Now, here we have customers. Now the CyberKey people collected their data, customers' data. Might be it's a PII data. PII means personally identifiable information. Now they are storing the data inside the data center within CyberKey and they are processing it. This data falls under, might be one of the regulatory requirement called as GDPR because they are doing the business in EU. European Union, GDPR is applicable, General Data Protection Regulation. Now, the board decided, okay, further we cannot able to collect and store this data, process it within our data center. So what we will do, we will go for a SaaS-based solution with one of the provider. So they decided. They know the risk, everything, but they decided. Now through the SaaS application, they are storing the data on the backend with the CSP, the PI data. And the CSP is processing the data on behalf of the CyberKey. CyberKey is a cloud service customer, and this cloud will be AWS cloud. They are the provider, cloud service provider. Now, now there is a breach happens because of some vulnerability in the cloud. Attacker exploits the vulnerability. This data got breached. Who is ultimately accountable? Who is ultimately answerable? CyberKey, the cloud service customer. These customers will go to CyberKey and ask, I gave your data to you, what happened? Why it got breached? These customers will sue the CyberKey. The GDPR regulatory bodies will impose a fine on CyberKey company only because they are the one who collected the data. They are the one who decided to move the data to the cloud. If something goes wrong, they are ultimately accountable. But there might be a contract between the cloud service customer contract between the cloud service customer and the provider. On basis of the contract, the CyberKey can sue the provider and get some monetary benefits. But ultimately, this CyberKey has to face all the consequences, loss of goodwill, everything. Right? That is why before migrating or adapting to the cloud, you have to always understand the benefits, advantages, concerns, risk, and everything. Now, this question is talking about in all cloud models, the dash will retain ultimate liability and responsibility for any data loss or disclosure. It's not vendor, it's not administrator, it's not state, it's always the customer. It's always the customer. Next question. The cloud customer will have the most control. Keyword is most. Mostly in the CCSP exam, there will be a lot of keywords, okay? Primary, least, most, best, first. Like this, many keywords will be there. The single keyword will ultimately change the meaning of the question. So always you should be very careful while reading the question. I would suggest that read the question thrice, twice. Understand the meaning. The cloud customer will have the most control of their data and systems, and the cloud provider will have the least amount of responsibility in which cloud computing arrangement. Let me do one thing. Let me actually show you one pictures which I've taken it from NIST before discussing this. If you see this particular slide, okay, here this particular picture I have taken it from an NIST document, special publication 500-292. You can also refer 500-291 as well. These are all free documents. This is actually a kind of a infrastructure as a service stack. This side we have the cloud provider. This side we have the cloud service customer. If you see, this is stack: hardware, hypervisor, and top of that we have the guest OS, middleware, and application. In infrastructure as a service, the provider is taking care of the hardware, and also he is managing the hypervisor as well. Hypervisor means it can be ESXi, Zen, KVM, whatever it is. They are updating it, managing it, fine tuning it, everything there. And top of that, the customer is spinning up the VM. On the VM, they are installing the guest OS, middleware, and application. So customer is having the total control over this guest OS. So an infrastructure as a service up to this, the provider stops. From here, from the guest OS middleware application, it is the responsibility of the cloud customer. So I'm having the control from the OS level itself in infrastructure as a service. One of the examples. Then we have platform as a service. If you see this picture, this is platform as a service. Hardware, operating system, middleware, application. Okay. One second. If you see this side, we have the cloud service provider. This side, we have the cloud service customer. So in platform as a service, as a customer, I'll be only having access to the platform. I'll be having access to the platform. The underlying hardware, operating system, middleware. Middleware means the platform where they have this, for example, Python, .NET, and they'll expose the APIs and libraries. Who's managing it? Provider. But on top of that platform, as a customer, I'm just deploying and developing and deploying my application. That application will be interacting with the platform using the API calls, libraries, and everything. So up to this, it is product responsibility. From here, it is customer responsibility. The overall security of the application and everything will be taken care by the customer in platform as a service. But when I go to software as a service, as a customer, we fully rely on the provider because we have very limited control. We have very limited control. For example, this side we have cloud service provider, this side we have cloud service customer. If you see, we have the hardware, operating system, middleware, application. So overall, the up to the administration of the application is taken care by the provider. For example, if you see Office 365 stack, Office 365 stack, as a customer, are we updating the stack? No. If you go for Salesforce, are we updating the Salesforce application? No. They're taken care by the provider. For the customer, only tenant side limited admin capability will be there. We'll create a tenant account. Inside that, we'll create the users who can access that. Right. So that is why, as a cloud customer, we have only limited admin control at the application, but everything will be taken care by the provider. Right. These are the three service models. So now the question is talking about most control. Cloud provider will have the least amount of responsibility. Absolutely, it's not community, it's not SaaS, because in SaaS, provider has the most responsibility. Platform as a service, no, because provider is having the most responsibility there up to the platform level. But if I want to have the most control of my data and the systems and everything, I should go for infrastructure as a service. That is why the answer is A for alpha. The cloud customer and the provider negotiate their respective responsibilities and rights regarding the capabilities and data of the cloud service. Where is the eventual agreement codified? So as a customer, if I want to go and do a business with the provider, this particular CSP, who will define the terms? Where the terms will be captured, right? There should be somewhere to capture the terms, the conditions, expectations, and uptimes and everything. Where it will be codified. Always contract is a key tool, or contract is the main document which defines the overall relationship between the customer and the provider. So it is not BIA. BIA stands for Business Impact Analysis. It's not the right one. Memorandum of Understanding, it's not the right one because it's some companies agree to do the business and they will do it. That's Memorandum of Understanding. So absolutely the answer is B for beta. Contract. Contract is a document. Contract is a tool or a document in which we define the overall relationship between the provider and the customer. Responsibilities, right, expectations, what you can expect, who's responsible for what, everything will be captured in the contract. That is why the answer is B for beta. It's not risk management framework. The answer is B for beta. Now next one. Your company is considering switching from a data center located on-prem to the cloud. So there is a company called as CyberKey. This is your on-prem data center. Now they are deciding to switching from a data center located on-prem to the cloud. A question on the advantages of using pay-as-you-go approach for the provision of services posed by a senior management. Which of the following is an advantages of using a pay-as-you-go system? So there is a senior management who is asking. Melvin is a cloud security consultant. So they are deciding to migrate from on-prem data center to the cloud. But one of the management guys asking Melvin, there is a characteristics of cloud called as pay-as-you-go approach, metered service. What is an advantage of going with that? So we have to select the best option for that. We'll start from D as usual. It drives digital transformation now. Shifting of OPEX into CAPEX, no. It's wrong, no? Risk is avoidance completely. Nobody can avoid the risk completely. Shifting of a CAPEX to OPEX. That's the reason we are going to the cloud. That's what something related to pay as you go. For example, now I have to build a system. I need i7, alright, CPU i7, 6 cores, 16 gigs of memory, 1 TB of hard disk, 2 network interface card. In real world, we'll go and procure this hardware upfront, assemble it, build it, and we'll use it. So capital expenditure is there. But same thing when I take it to the cloud, I just go log into the console and I just create a VM with the same configurations. I'm not investing anything upfront, but whenever I use this VM, how much time I'm using, how much resource I'm consuming, based on that I'm going to pay for it. That is operating expenditure. So as per the question, pay as you go system. We are moving from shifting of a capex to operating expenditure. By that, it's very beneficial for the organization because there is no way for depreciation and other things and all. So that's why for this question, the most optimum answer is A. Now, next question. You are working for cyber key technologies. This is actually a domain 6 question in CCSP, cloud governance, legal and compliance. The company is planning to host some applications on third-party cloud services. There is a company called as CyberKey. They are planning to host some applications in the cloud. CyberKey are concerned about data browsing, data security, and breach notification because of the record regulation of EU. CyberKey is doing a business in EU, so they want to migrate this application and the associated data to the cloud. They're very concerned about browsing, data browsing. They're very concerned about data security, breach notifications because of the regulation in EU. In EU, what regulation is applicable? It is GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. What do you recommend most to drive the following governance requirements with the provider? So as a customer, I just want to move this application and data to the cloud. I know that GDPR is applicable. So I have to make sure that whatever the data processed in the particular cloud is also compliant to the GDPR. How it will be done? The governance requirements. Breach notification is the responsibility of the customer. No. Can say yes, but as I go for a SaaS-based solution, if the breach happens, product has to also inform it to me. No? So not particularly to the customer. Categories of data and security incidents should be prioritized with expected timelines for notification depending on incident types and requirements by the customer. I'll park this, makes sense. Customers should contractually require data breach notification from the product in unambiguous language. This is making more sense. I'll park this as well. Should the product contractually require data breach? No. I remove A and B. B is talking about categories of data and security incidents should be prioritized with expected timelines for notification depending on incident types recommended by the customer. That's okay. As a customer, I can do that. But where it should be captured, because I have to say this is my expectations as per my GDPR. I have to capture this expectation in the form of what contract. So that is why C makes more sense. So that is why I go for the option C, because customer should contractually require data breach notification should be specified in the contract from their providers in unambiguous language. That is why the answer is C for Charlie. Next question. Bob is the DPO. What is DPO? DPO stands for Data Protection Officer, which is one of the requirement of GDPR, which is applicable in EU. Not only EU, where we are processing the EU data, the GDPR might be applicable. So Bob is the DPO for cyberkey technologies, and they are the GDPR controller. He has suggested that the company must encrypt all personal data addressed according to GDPR. Company must encrypt all personal data addressed. Which GDPR principle is the complaint? Actually, in GDPR, we have many articles. Under many articles, we have principles as well. I will discuss the principles later in the other sessions as well when we discuss question related to that. But this question is talking about company must encrypt all personal data addressed to satisfy one of the principle under GDPR. So is it accountability? No, accountability is the person who collects the data is always accountable. for securing the data. Whatever happens, it will be answerable. So this is not the right one. Storage limitation, I'm going to only store the data as per the need. That is storage limitation, but it's not related to this. Integrity and confidentiality absolutely makes sense now. When I encrypt the data, we achieve confidentiality. By hashing the data, we achieve integrity. As question is talking about must encrypt all personal data at rest, I go for this answer C. Because by encrypting the data, we achieve the confidentiality. It's not D, which is lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. Absolutely, C makes more sense. That is why the answer is C for Charlie. And this is the end of your CCSP exam bytes part 1. So I'll be creating a lot of series like this. If you would like to see and watch more exam bytes like this for CCSP and CSSP2, comment it in the comment section so that I will create more videos like this. Thank you. Thank you all.